Welcome to Ryan's Leadership Lessons podcast. Thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Ryan Stemen. I've managed people, projects. I've been a board member on a nonprofit board, and I've been a member of multiple sports teams. So hopefully I can give you some advice based on my own personal skills and experience. My ultimate goal of this podcast is to give you one leadership lesson at a time. So let's jump into episode 2. In episode 2, what we're going to be talking about is John Wooden's Pyramid of Success. So I wrote about this in a newsletter that I posted on LinkedIn, and I'll add it in the show notes so that you can read more about it. But basically, John Wooden created what's called the Pyramid of Success. And John, or Johnny Wooden, however you want to name him, he was a coach, a famous coach back in the 1960s and 70s. He coached UCLA and had 19 conference titles. He was probably more successful than Duke's Coach K. He was awarded 17 various Coach of the Year honors. He served in the U.S. military. He had a Presidential Medal of Freedom. Just the list goes on and on, but what we're going to focus on in this episode is about his pyramid of success. And more importantly, is a book that he co-wrote with Jay Carty in 2005 called Coach Wooden's Pyramid of Success Playbook. And we're going to go through kind of just 5 bullet points about the pyramid of success. And I want you to think about this in your mind. I want you to think about a successful team, a successful coach, a successful business, and I want you to think about the aspects of the successful coach that you had, or the successful manager that you had, or the successful boss that you reported to. Why was it that those were successes? What made those things successes? And I think by unpacking Coach Wooden's pyramid of success, we can think about all the ways that those individuals were successful and why. And Coach Wooden kind of broke these things down into a pyramid, so to speak. You know, on the bottom is the most important foundation, and then you work your way up to what's considered competitive greatness. And we'll walk through each of the steps in the pyramid. But first, the first part of it is a foundation. So he calls this industriousness to enthusiasm. And that's essentially the bottom part of this pyramid. So he has 5 squares at the bottom of the pyramid. He has industriousness, friendship, loyalty, cooperation, enthusiasm. And if you think about your own team that's successful, whether that's a sports team or that's a business team or that's a nonprofit team that's successful, they have all aspects of this. They're friendly with each other. They're loyal to the mission of the team. You know, whether that's winning a game or that's having a successful month of sales or that's having a successful close to the accounting books, or they're cooperative with each other. They're enthusiastic. They're excited to be there. And then the fifth thing is industriousness. So they're thinking about ways to be better at their skill or their craft, right? So that creates a nice layer or foundation of any team. I think about my own teams that had been successful. Everyone was friendly with each other. We figured out ways to work together. We were loyal to the company. We were thinking about how do we cooperate and collaborate across, different time zones and countries, and how do we work together. But most of all, we were enthusiastic about what we were doing. I'm thinking specifically about managing a global team, and we were very enthusiastic about what we did together. We were thinking about ways to be successful, and we would encourage each other. We would, on a weekly basis, we would say, this is what we did right, this is what we did wrong, these are the things that we did well together. So we thought about those things, and we were very successful due to our enthusiasm, our cooperation, our loyalty, our friendship, and industriousness. So that's the foundation. So once you get those things right as a team, whether it's a sports team, a business, a nonprofit board, or maybe it's just a project that you're working on at school, like if you get those 5 core base items correct in a pyramid, or the pyramid of success, as John Wooden called them, you're going to be in a good position. So you can build upon those things. If you think about like a house with a foundation, so a house has to have a great foundation, right? You can't start on the roof and work your way down. You have to work on the foundation and then work your way up to the roof and build it out. So think about those things as um, you're building up your team to be a success. Okay, so we'll go into the next phase. So the first phase was foundation, and then the second is building blocks. So it's really about character building at this stage. You've created a nice foundation, and you want to create uh, the character in these individuals, right? You want to help them grow, you want to help them advance. So if you think about the best teams that you've ever been on, whether that's sports teams or business, a group that you worked with at work, you think about those individuals who had self-control, alertness, initiative, intentness. So their intent is to do well. Their intent is to be the best. So you think about those things. They have initiative. They can work on their own. They can work independently. Some of the best teams I was on, they had great intent. They had great initiative to do the best work. They were alert to what's going on. Oh, our competitors are doing this. Oh, I saw this happen, and I think this would be a great idea for our team to do as well. Or they had great self-control. I knew that they could work independently, and I wasn't worried about them getting off task or spending a ton of time spinning their wheels on a problem. We could figure out things together. And again, you start to think about that core foundation, and then you're building up to this next foundation, which is the building blocks called character building. And then number three, which is considered the middle tier, is condition, skill, team spirit. So you've touched on industriousness, friendship, loyalty, cooperation, enthusiasm on the bottom of the pyramid, and then the building blocks have turned into self-control, alertness, initiative, intentiveness. And then you get up to condition. So you have condition, skill, team spirit. Um, I just like to think about my own sports teams that I was on growing up that were really competitive, really successful. They had those sort of 9 building blocks plus the core foundation, and then they also had three additional items. There was conditioning that they were ready for it. They were physically ready for games and competitiveness, and they had the skill. They had acquired the skill all season, or maybe their entire life they had been playing the sport, so their skills were really high. And then finally they got into team spirit. So they were very, very competitive, and they were very enthusiastic for the team to win. And you saw that. So each of these things would build. I would see the individuals on my team, they had friendship and loyalty and cooperation and enthusiasm for what they were doing, but they also had self-control for what they were doing. They were very focused, and they had intent to do really well. They were alert to what was going on on the sports field. They were conditioned to do really well. They had the skills, and then most of all, they had team spirit. One of the things about me, and I've said this before publicly, is I was a mascot in college. So I had great team spirit, and it led to so many better things and so many better outcomes. I got to cheer on the field for sports teams that were good and bad, and it was great to see a good sports team succeed in college. And there was nothing better than seeing a team put all those foundation, all those building blocks, and then the conditioning, skill, and team spirit together to be successful. Now, we're building our way up the pyramid, right? So we've created this core foundation. We've got the building blocks, and then we got some skill to add to it. So you have 3 really important areas of this pyramid. It's really coming to shape, right? Just like a house. You're building that foundation. You've framed up the house. You're starting to put on the top of the frame. You're starting to build things out, right? Just like on a pyramid. So the next thing you have is poise and confidence. Being yourself, being at ease in your situation is what Johnny Wooden says. Never fighting against yourself. You're always fighting for yourself. You have the pose of a leader or of a team player. You have confidence. You have respect without fear, is what he says. So you have the confidence to go up to the basketball onto the basketball court and to go up to the 3-point line and shoot the 3-point shot and make it. Or you have the ability to sit with a customer and sell them your product with confidence and poise. Or maybe you're on a nonprofit and you have the ability to lead others to volunteer on a project. So you have that confidence because you've seen this work time and time again. So that's what's incredible about this pyramid of success. It makes a lot of sense. You've built up a foundation. You've taken the building blocks to the next step. You've acquired skill, condition, team spirit. Now you have this poise and this confidence to do the job, to be really good at it. And you think about teams that maybe started out dysfunctional and got better with time by figuring out those core strengths. And then they started building on those core strengths. And then they started acquiring additional skills and team spirit and conditioning. And then you started to see them win games. You're like, wow, that team's doing really well, or that company is doing really well. They're selling well, or they have a great product. Or that nonprofit over there, they're making a huge impact in the community. And so you see those things build upon each other, and then it gets up to competitive greatness. So you finally get to the top of the pyramid, so to speak, in this pyramid of success, and you become competitive greatness in the sense that you you are the best in your industry, or you are the best in the nonprofit world, or you are the best sports teams. You think about some of the best products out there in the world, or you think about some of the best sports teams, whether that's in high school or college or professionally. I don't care if it's a volleyball team or if it's a soccer team or a basketball team or a football team. You see the competitive greatness, right? You've seen them win multiple championships. You know their names, you know their teams because they're continuing to win and be successful. And that's what happened with Johnny Wooden. The UCLA Bruins were consistently competitive, consistently great, consistently winning conference titles, NCAA titles, and Johnny Wooden as a coach was continually being talked about as the best coach. And you see that today in football, or you see that in soccer, or you see that in baseball, or you see it in volleyball or softball. You see these coaches, these athletes be talked about over and over again as the best because they created a nice foundation. They worked on the building blocks. They created confidence in themselves and enthusiasm and poise. And then they built their way up to competitive greatness because they got better and better and kept winning. And almost like a snowball effect, where the snowball starts up at the very top, really small. Over time, the snowball gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as it rolls downhill. This same thing happens. It's a compounding effect of the greatness. Over time, they get better and better and better. Um, but the great thing about it is it's not limited, right? So there's no finite greatness. You can continue to hone your skills and get better and better as an individual contributor, or as a leader, or as a team. So you got to think about that from a team perspective. If you have new players joining your team, you have new employees joining you, you can work on this foundation. You can work on the building blocks. You can work on the middle tiers, the condition, skill, and team spirit. And then you can work on the pinnacle parts, the poise, the confidence, and competitive greatness. And then you can think about the very top, the competitive greatness. And that's the fascinating thing. You can see this as a real blueprint for being one of the best in your field. And that's what you ultimately want to do. As a leader, you want to bring out the best in people that you're leading. And it doesn't matter if it's a team that's competing on the sports field, or if it's a team that's in business, or it's a nonprofit, or you're in a project for school. You want to bring out the best in others. And as a leader, that's been my goal as a leader, to bring out the best in others. And the cool thing about this book by Johnny Wooden and his co-author is that it brought out so much of his knowledge, his history, his background as a competitively great coach. It brought out the best in him. And I highly encourage you, even if you don't read the book, Google pyramid of success. Johnny Wooden, you can see it outlined. It's free for people to see online and what it looks like. He created it, and it's been, you'll see it in the TV show Ted Lasso. He has it on the wall behind him. It's referenced in pop culture. It's referenced in movies, and and in business and in sports. You see it used over and over again, even after Johnny Wooden's passing years ago. So his ideas still live on, and I think that's the great thing about this pyramid of success. It can be applied to teams of all shapes and sizes of those who are learning and growing as team members. And that's what I'll wrap it up here. This has been a great episode number 2. I thank you for your time and listening to me, and I look forward to the next podcast.